Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Adam's Music Box. And today we're going to talk about one of my very favorite musicians of any genre of all time. And he might be one of yours too, because he was incredibly popular. And his popularity was earned the real way, some would say the hard way, gigging from his high school years right up to just a few years before his incredibly tragic death. This is, of course, Eddie Van Halen. And there were a lot of things that made him special. His guitar technique is discussed a lot. Frank Zappa said that he was the man who reinvented the electric guitar. And we'll talk about that at some point. But I want to talk about the X factor. And it's not the tapping, it's not the virtuosity, it's not the panache, even though all of that set Eddie apart from just about everyone else, both before and since. But what really made Eddie unique was the fact that he was one of the best songwriters of all time. And I think that this is something that a lot of young aspiring guitarists tend to forget, especially in the age of YouTube, which is where we are now. A lot of guitarists think that their goal is to just shred like crazy, play a song that everyone knows, and just solo like crazy over it, shred like crazy, as though it's the Olympics. They want to be the top runner. They want to be the Michael Jordan of the guitar. They want to be the Michael Johnson of guitar. You see what I'm getting at. But what made Eddie Van Halen so fun to listen to? And what made him so fun to listen to over such a sustained period of time? The answer to that question is his ability to write great songs that were typically centered around some of the most memorable riffs of all time. I'll put this to you. For every great memorable guitar solo from any guitarist, whether Hendrix, Clapton, Van Halen, Alan Holdsworth, John McLaughlin, I think the things that we tend to remember the most are great guitar riffs. Ritchie Blackmore's Smoke on the Water, everyone knows it. Stairway to Heaven, Jimmy Page, everyone knows it. And when it comes to Eddie Van Halen, whether on guitar or indeed on keyboards, everyone knows at least a handful of Eddie Van Halen riffs, and people who really like that kind of music probably know a lot more. Beyond just the riffs, though, the song structure of just about every Van Halen song was perfect. And it wasn't formulaic either. Every song sounded unique, but every song did have certain characteristics that just sort of drew you in. There was a great riff, there were hooks, there was always a great solo in there. The bridges were always great, the choruses were always something that you could sing along to. And he was able to accomplish this with two, well, three technically, but two really different singers. And yet his ability to write great songs for people with totally different approaches to lyrics and two totally different vocal styles, it remained consistent. Some people just have a great flair for songwriting, and Eddie Van Halen was absolutely a natural. And that's why the rock songs that he has written have become standards in the rock canon, because audiences know them, players know them, and aspiring younger players want to master them, which isn't always easy because, as Joe Satriani has recently said, he who is having to learn all of these great songs and solos as he's going on what amounts to an Eddie tribute show, along with Sammy Hagar and Michael Anthony and Jason Bonham, rather, John Bonham sung on drums. He said that it's not so easy to learn, and some of the things that Eddie played that seemed the most simple were actually some of the most complex. And that's really, really saying something. And so, if there's a lesson to be learned from Eddie's greatness, and there are quite a few, I would say think about songwriting, and it doesn't always come easily. Eddie was kind of a natural, but he cut his teeth on covers. When you listen to some of those early Mammoth Live Show bootlegs, they were playing all sorts of covers: Robin Trower, ZZ Top, Led Zeppelin, the list goes on. So many interesting covers, and they became Van Halen songs because of Eddie's sound, his touch, his approach, his solos. And then when they started writing their own material, long before they had a record record contract, mind you. They just became the band in LA. Everyone on the Sunset Strip, everyone in West Hollywood, everyone everywhere wanted to see them. And this same youthful energy carried through on all of their albums in both the David Lee Roth years and in the Sammy Hagar years. So think about songwriting. Don't just focus on your chops if you're a young guitar player, because if you really want to leave an impression on your audience, and if you want them to come back for more, you've got to do something that sticks in their head. And that really is songwriting. I don't think there'll ever be someone in the rock genre who will be able to write exactly like Eddie Van Halen. This is true for several reasons. Rock has become much less of a song-driven format and much more of a solo-driven format. And as a result, rock music has gone from the pop mainstream into something just on the edge of the mainstream, because danceable pop music that's very hip-hop influenced, and hip-hop itself is the pop music of today. And it's been the pop music for a while. In the 90s, rock and hip-hop coexisted, but as hip-hop became increasingly fun and the grunge era made rock increasingly introspective, audiences who wanted that fun, who wanted that emotional involvement and emotional investment, they went to hip hop. In Eddie Van Halen's day, that emotional involvement and emotional investment was found in rock, and no one did it better than Eddie. So, as we always remember the legacy of Eddie Van Halen, because it's never a bad day to do that, remember him most of all as a great songwriter who was able to write rock classics seemingly effortlessly and meld them together with so much virtuosity that you almost forget just what a virtuoso he is, because his fantastic playing was integrated so deeply and so cohesively into the amazing songs that he wrote. So, put on a Van Halen record, doesn't matter which one. They never really did a bad one. They were all great in their own way. And think about how he was able to come up with these songs, both the deep cuts and the singles that we all know and love. Like, subscribe, listen to Eddie, and we'll see you next time. Bye, everyone.